Hello everyone, I'm Chad Cordeiro, printer at David Krut Projects and DJI Studio, and this will be the beginning of a series of demos from what I set up of my home studio. Today's episode is going to be on relief printing, and I'll take you briefly through everything from cropping paper, print preparation to inking, and then finally printing. Okay, so this is Ali, my pit bull. He's gonna be up and down while we're doing these demos. Okay, you need to get off now. Bye. So the first thing we're gonna do is prepare paper and crop down paper. I'll explain a little bit about the two different types of paper that we have here. So this sheet over here is a 300 gram Somerset. That's soft white. So you can see a difference in the color. That's a cream, or a soft white as it's called, and this is bright white paper. The one on the right on this side is a 400 gram Osh, which means it's heavier and it's more textured as a paper. And the differences in paper is dependent on what you want when you're printing relief paints. So right at the end of this demo, we'll see the difference in the outcome of using the 300 gram Somerset or the 400 gram Osh, and how they read differently as final prints. Now I'm going to take you guys through cropping your sheet down. The way we do it is scoring, folding, and then tearing the paper to get a fuzzy edge on your prints. Okay, I'm going to take you guys through cropping down your sheet of paper. I've already calculated my measurements for how much I need to cut off the bigger sheet to get to the sheet size that we're going to print on. So I'd take the size of the bigger sheet, subtract the size of the smaller sheet, and divide that measurement by 2. And that way I know how much I need to crop off of each side of my big sheet to get size that's perfect for printing. The tools you'll need to do this are a scoring needle, which is a sharpened needle, in this case round bar. It's been sharpened to a point, and a bone folder, which is a tool that printmakers and bookbinders use for folding paper. They will also use to fold and crop in this case, and obviously a ruler to get your measurements. Okay, so I calculated that I need to cut off 6.5 centimeters on each side of this big sheet. So with my ruler on the edge of the paper, I'll measure 6.5 centimeters in and puncture the surface of my paper with my scoring needle. I'll do the same at the top of the sheet, measuring 6.5 centimeters in and puncturing again. And then with my ruler, I'll line up each of those puncture holes to make sure that it's a straight edge. Brace the ruler, put the scoring needle at a 45-degree angle, and then score 1, 2, 3 times. So I know from experience with cropping that with the pressure I use, Somerset, 300 gram Somerset takes about 3 scores. Obviously thicker paper will take more. Once that's done, I'll flip my sheet, break the fibers on the side that's been scored, push flat, and then use my bone folder going from the middle of the paper out to further crush the fibers on the side that I scored and fold the paper. So once that's happened, you flip the paper again, fold it the other way at a 90-degree angle. You don't want to go too far. And then bracing the sheet with my forearm and my hand, onto the side of the paper that I need. And that creates a fuzzy edge that you see on fine art prints. Okay, I repeated that cropping process with the 3 other sides of the sheet. So now we have a sheet of Arsh and a sheet of Somerset ready to print. Now that our paper is prepped, we can move on to preparing the ink and the inking station for the inking of the linocut. So now we'll move on to ink. This is pre-mixed, pre-wrapped ink that I prepared yesterday and added more this morning because of all the test prints I did to make sure I get this right. The ink that we're going to be working with is a Graphic Chemical ink company, Lithographic ink shop mix black. The good stuff. It's quite it's an ink with quite a heavy pigment, so it's super stiff, as you can see. Mixed with some Henko cobalt dryer, which will speed up drying time. Some Henko Setswell compound to make the ink nice and greasy. And some Litho Varnish, which I believe is also, this is Renaissance Graphic Art Litho Varnish number 3, which will loosen the ink up, especially useful in cold weather that we're having today. So that is my ink mixture. Gonna scoop up some of this. As you can see, it's still fairly hard. We're gonna lay it down and work it a little bit before we start loading the roller and inking up the plate, just to get it a bit softer. So by working the ink, I'm loosening it and softening it a little bit. You can see it's a little bit softer just from me working the ink the way that I did. I'm going to lay out a stripe. It's about the size of the roller. Put this away. Now it's time to start loading the roller and inking the plate. So you want to take just a touch from that surface, lift the roller each time just to spread the ink out on the surface. Take from your ink slab, from your ink well onto your slab, so that you can, it's easier to control how much ink you have in your slab, and later on how much ink you're putting onto your plates. So I turn the roller like that just to get an even kind of coat of ink. So if there's ink building up on one side of the roller and not the other, that's the way it's going to be going down onto your slab. And you want to change directions again, just to even out the slab of ink. Turn the roller. So what we're looking for when you're creating your slab is number one, the sound, and number two, the way the ink looks on your slab and on your roller. So you're listening for a hissing sound. And you're looking for a kind of orange peel texture in the way that your slab looks, as well as on the roller. So once you have that, you can start applying the ink to your plate. Start from one end to the other, repeating the process. In different directions. And remember, you're building up layers of ink on the plate slowly so that you don't flood the carved marks that you've created. So I'm using a small brayer now because the tests that I had done yesterday and this morning showed me that this plate unfortunately doesn't print consistently. So from those tests and experiments, I now understand that with this particular plate, I need to add more ink on this side and that side, without touching the carved area. I don't want to fill any of the marks that I've already cut. So now I'm going to go from the small roller that I used to add extra ink to each side of the plate back to this big roller. And the reason I'm going to do that is just to clean up any roller marks or inconsistencies that the small brayer might have made on the plate just before we print. So this is kind of a last rollover just to clean up the inking of the plates and to again ensure that there's no roller marks. Again, we're looking for an orange peel texture on the plate, as you can see. And now we're ready to print. So this is an etching press. It's a fairly small one. And the setup that I had done previously is these 4 linocut runners. So that will ensure that this roller keeps consistent pressure as it goes on and off of the plate and the paper. These are called blankets, and they provide like a cushion for the paper and the wheel as it goes over the ink plate. This is called an acetate registration. So I have my paper size marked out in black and my plate size marked out in blue. So what we're going to do first is line up the paper to the registration. And by turning the wheel, we're going to trap the paper like so. Then grab the inked up plates and then line up the plates to this acetate registration that I have. now that everything's lined up, print. Now that we've run the inked up plate with the paper through the printing press, we can lift the blankets, brace the paper, preferably on the outside of the printing surface of the plate, and reveal the print. So remember, because linocut is essentially a stamp, everything that you cut onto the plate will read in reverse. So realistically, everything's backwards. It prints a mirror image. So as you can see on the plate, the bottle's facing that way. On the print, the bottle's facing this way. The text is carved backwards so that it can print in a readable way, and that's how you make a linocut. After this process, I'll go back in and crop down the edges. And that's basically how you print a linocut. I think something important to share is that with all the preparation that you can throw at life and all the things you can do to be prepared for the first time something happens, things very seldom pan out the way that you want them to in life. Printmaking is a really good example of that. So I decided to lay out all, or at least some of the better prints, my test prints, to show you where we started and where we ended up. So between yesterday and today, I was setting up pressure for the press, figuring out inking of the plates, registration, and all of those other things that add variables to printing linocuts and relief prints. So just for interest's sake, this is where I started. This is my first test. Nothing ever comes out perfect, and with practice, adjustment, and problem solving, we slowly get from this proof to that, and then finally to the prints that we want. Nothing ever works out on the first go, and it takes practice, determination, planning, and experimentation to get to these two final products. Those two different kinds of paper that we spoke about at the beginning of the video are illustrated here. This is the 300 gram Somerset paper. This is the 400 gram Arch. You can see a slight difference in color between these two prints, and also the way the ink sits on the surface of the paper. And we can therefore understand how important paper choice is for printers and artists who are producing limited edition prints. Thank you for joining me at my home studio. Thank you for watching the first installment of David Krut Project's lockdown demo series. And yeah, we hope that you join us again. I hope that you join me again. Please, if you have any questions, post them on the video. If you have any comments, any requests, post all of your stuff in the comment section under the video, and I'll respond and engage with as many of you guys as I can. Stay tuned for the next one, which will come through next week, and will be focused on how we produce monotypes in the workshop. Please, guys, remember to stay inside if you can, be safe, spend some time with your loved ones, and yeah, talk to you next week.